Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving into something really important for researchers here in Japan, especially if you're getting public funding.
That includes our international colleagues working here too, right?
Absolutely. There's a brand new policy coming into effect about how you'll need to share your research papers and data.
Yeah, it's officially called the Policy for the Immediate Open Access to Academic Papers, etc. It's based on decisions made fairly recently, like back in February 2024.
And this isn't just a small adjustment, is it?
No, not at all. It's really a foundational shift. The documents are pretty clear on the why.
Okay.
Well, firstly, returning the results of publicly funded research back to the public makes sense.
Right. Public money, public results.
Exactly. And then there's the issue of addressing those ever-increasing costs from global academic publishers.
Ah, yes, the subscription fees. Yeah.
And also boosting the international visibility of Japanese research. It's fascinating, really, seeing Japan align with these global open science movements, the kind of thing discussed at the G7.
But they're also trying to balance that with the practical challenges researchers face every day.
Precisely. It's a balancing act.
So, the big mission for this deep dive, then, is to cut through the policy jargon and help you, the researcher getting these funds, understand exactly what this means.
Yeah, we're working directly from the official documents here, pulling out the essentials you need to know.
And just to be clear, this applies to certain public competitive research funds, specifically those where producing papers is a key goal.
And crucially, it targets funds that start soliciting applications newly in fiscal year 2025. So look out for that in the funding calls.
Okay, so the core requirement, immediate open access. What does immediate actually mean in this context?
It means no embargo period at all after your paper is published in a journal. Zero delay.
Published meaning?
Good question. The policy clarifies it's when the paper is available electronically, even if it's just ahead of print, not necessarily in a final print issue.
Got it. Instant online access. So what exactly are you required to make open access immediately?
Two things. First, your peer-reviewed academic papers.
The final published version.
Ah, no, that's key. It's the author's final manuscript version after peer review, but before the publisher does their final layout and formatting, often called the AAM or post-print.
Okay, the AM. And the second thing?
What they call required underlying data.
Which sounds like it could be a lot.
Well, not necessarily. Understanding required here is crucial. It isn't just all your project data.
Right.
It specifically refers only to the data set that's needed for transparency and reproducibility if that data is explicitly required by the guidelines of the journal where you published the paper.
Ah, so it's tied directly to what the journal demands for that specific article.
Exactly. If the journal doesn't require specific data to be shared, this policy doesn't add that requirement for the data itself, just the paper.
Okay, that clarifies things.
All right.
So, final manuscript plus any journal-required data, immediately open access. But where does it need to go?
The policy says you must deposit it in an information infrastructure like an institutional repository.
Your university's repository, typically.
That's the primary place, yes. But the key thing is that the material has to become searchable via Japan's main system for finding research outputs, the NII Research Data Cloud, or NII-RDC.
So NIRDC is like the central hub.
Think of it that way. Your institutional repository is usually connected, but other options are allowed too, as long as they feed into NII-RDC searchability.
Like what?
Things like specific subject repositories or platforms like JST's, Jeff.
That's the preprint server from the Japan Science and Technology Agency, right?
Correct. And potentially their planned grants data repository. Interestingly, even if the paper is immediately OAA on the publisher's website.
Like gold open access.
Right.
Right.
That could potentially count, but only if the metadata, the information about the paper and where to find it, gets properly reported by you and made searchable via NIR-RDC. Deposition is still strongly encouraged, though.
Okay. Depositing seems like the main pathway, aiming for that NII-RDC visibility. But what if immediate OA is, well, genuinely difficult? Publishers sometimes have strict rules.
That's a really important point. The documents do acknowledge this possibility.
So they recognize researchers might face barriers.
Yes. The policy says you should strive for immediate OA, but it includes specific ways to report if you run into difficulties.
How does that work?
When you file your annual project reports, likely through systems like ERAD.
Japan's main grant management portal.
Exactly. You'll find specific items where you need to detail why immediate OA wasn't possible for a particular publication.
And what reasons do they consider acceptable?
The documents list them out. Things like The publisher or journal policy has an embargo period you couldn't get around.
Makes sense.
Or their OA policy was unclear, maybe you couldn't figure it out. Or, and this is a big one, it was difficult to cover costs like APCs.
Article processing charges.
Right. Difficult to cover those within your research budget, or perhaps through existing deals like transformative agreements some universities have.
So you report the reason. What then?
The expectation is you still deposit the manuscript, perhaps under embargo initially, and then make it public as soon as that difficulty, like the embargo period ending, is resolved.
And they'll be checking this.
Oh, yes. They will be tracking it. In your annual reports, for each paper, you'll state if immediate OA was achieved. If not, you list the reason. They'll be monitoring metrics like the percentage of your publications that meet the immediate OA goal.
Okay, let's try and sum this deep dive up quickly then. The core message for you, if you're a researcher in Japan getting these relevant public competitive funds with applications starting FY 2025.
Is that you're obligated to make your peer-reviewed papers, the author's final manuscript version, and any journal-required underlying data immediately open access.
Meaning zero embargo. And you do this primarily by depositing them in places like your institutional repository or other platforms, ensuring they become searchable via Japan's NII-RDC system.
Exactly. And compliance will be tracked through your annual reports on systems like ERAD.
It's quite a significant push for rapid open sharing of publicly funded research.
It absolutely is, aiming for greater transparency, accessibility, both within Japan and internationally. And while it does build in reporting for real-world barriers like publisher rules, the clear direction is prompt sharing whenever possible. It's a big step.
Right. So here's something to really chew on. We see this strong push for immediate OA, but also this mechanism for reporting difficulties, especially around publisher policies, embargoes, EPCs, transformative agreements. What does this signal about the future dynamics? How might this new requirement combined with the reporting system actually reshape the negotiations between Japanese research institutions, individual researchers like you, and those major global academic publishers going forward?
Yeah, how will it influence where researchers choose to publish or how institutions manage those big deals?
Definitely gives you something to think about.